All right, today we're going to make some garlic knots. This is going to make either 16 smaller or a dozen larger garlic knots. I have my water and yeast in my bowl. I just get that started a few minutes early while I was getting my ingredients together because you just want your yeast to start working. I have 2 teaspoons of yeast and 1 1/4 cup of warm water. Make sure your water is not too hot because you don't want to kill your yeast. If your water is too hot, you can kill it. You can also throw your sugar in right away. I have a tablespoon of sugar. Sugar works fine with the yeast. So we just got those 3 ingredients in there. And the other things we're going to add are some garlic spice. You can just use garlic powder. I like this Johnny's garlic spread spice from Costco because there's other ingredients in here as well. I'm going to use a full teaspoon. If you have just plain garlic powder, half a teaspoon is fine. Of course, if you really love garlic, go ahead and put a full teaspoon in, that's okay. And I'm going to do a full teaspoon because I do have other things in here other than just garlic. I'm also going to put in a teaspoon of salt. And I've got 3 tablespoons of olive oil. You can use vegetable oil, any kind of an oil is fine. I'm just going to get that in there. And the yeast I use, in case you're wondering, I just use the one from Costco because it's very cheap. I think it's $5 for a 2-pound bag of yeast. And I just store it in my freezer. Once I have it open, store it in your freezer. It just lasts longer, stays fresh. This is just a regular active dry yeast that I like to use. And I have 3 1/4 cups of flour. Nice thing about bread is you can use breads and doughs. You can just throw everything in your pot and get the mixer going. So I've got my warm water with my yeast, my sugar, garlic powder, salt, olive oil, and flour. And we're just going to get this mixing with our dough hook. And we're just going to keep it on low. And I'm going to let this mix for 5 minutes. So kind of keep an eye on the time. You just want your dough to come together nice and to be able to start to have that gluten working by it kneading together. And the dough hook in the mixer is going to do all the work for you. You could do it by hand if you really want, but the mixer is going to do all your work. So we'll come back in 5 minutes. I'll show you what the dough looks like after it's been mixing for 5 minutes. All right, so we've had our dough mixing here for 5 minutes. You can see it's all nice. The bowl is clean. It's all nice, one big ball. So I'm just going to get it off my hook. I'm just going to put it in a little bit of a smaller bowl because it's such a big bowl for rising. So this is a nice texture, a little bit tacky. You like to have things a little bit tacky. It makes it easier for rolling things out on your counter because it grips your counter just a little bit when you're working with it. So very nice dough. I'm just going to put it into a bowl. Cover that up either with a tea towel or I just use little shower caps. Works great just to keep it dry, or keep it from drying out. You don't want your dough to dry out. So this will just keep it nice and moist. And we're going to let this rise for 1 hour. So just check your watch, just make sure you know, give it an hour. If you're going to be making these for dinner, you need about a 2.5-hour window just before dinner if you want them coming out of the oven right at dinner time. So 2.5 hours is what you would need. So we're going to let this rise for an hour. All right, so our dough for the garlic knots has been rising for an hour. So we're going to take that out of our bowl. Get all the dough, it just sticks to the bowl a little bit and some of it. That's okay, you can easily get that out. If you use a piece of dough to unstick it, works great. All right, we're going to roll this into a rectangle. So we want to be able to shape all of our knots. And we just want to be able to divide this into 12 garlic knots. I'm doing larger ones. You can do 16 if you want to do smaller ones. So we do half, just kind of, and that'll give us 3 for each. A little bit of math going on there to give you your 12. All right. So you're going to have your garlic knot, so you can roll this a little bit because you want to have a nice long knot. And I'll just come down here. So what you're going to do is you're going to cross them You're gonna bring one up and under and one over and under. And you just wanna get the ends kind of tucked in so you have a nice little knot. We'll do that again. Just roll it out a little, just so you have it something long enough so you can tie it into your knot. All right, so we're just gonna cross them. Now this one that's over, you're gonna bring up and up into this side. This one here, it doesn't matter, you just wanna get them in there, and then when you get to the ends, just get the ends kind of tucked under so you have a nice knot. Don't worry if they're not perfect, it's okay. They're still gonna taste good. So we're gonna get all 12 of these knots going, and then we're gonna cover them with just a tea towel, and we're gonna let them rise for another hour, because now that we're shaping them, we're gonna get them to rise, and they'll be puffed up nicely. And then we're gonna brush them with some garlic butter before we put them in the oven. So I'm gonna just get these shaped. I'll do a quick video just when I'm almost done so you can see what they look like, and then we're gonna cover them up. So just give me a few minutes here to get these rolled out. All right, so definitely don't worry about being perfect. None of my two of them look exactly alike. It's okay. You just want to get a nice little knot so that it has just a fun shape on top. And we're gonna just cover these up. So they're gonna need the hour to rise. So what we're gonna do is at the 45-minute mark, we're gonna get the oven preheating at 425 degrees. So it's a quick bake. It doesn't have to bake for long, 12 to 15 minutes at a high temperature. So we're gonna get the oven preheating in about 45 minutes. And in that last 15 minutes, while the oven's preheating, we're gonna get our garlic butter ready. And I'll show you how to do that as well. But just make sure you cover these so they don't dry out. And these are gonna just sit on the counter for an hour. All right, so I've got my oven preheating to 425 for the garlic knots. I've melted some butter, about 1/3 of a cup. It might be a little bit more. It's a little bit over 1/3 of a cup. That's okay. And we're gonna add in some spices to this. And I'm gonna put in a teaspoon of oregano, or if you have Italian seasoning, that can go in there. That'll be good for that as well. And I'm also gonna put in, actually half a teaspoon to a teaspoon, doesn't really matter. I like the green, to have a little bit of green on top. And I'm also gonna put in another teaspoon of my garlic spice, or if you have garlic powder. You can also do fresh cloves of garlic. Mince up about 3 cloves of garlic, which will make it very, very garlic strong. Whatever you like. If you prefer garlic powder, if you prefer the Johnny's garlic spread spice, doesn't matter. The idea is you just want to get some of that garlic spice and some oregano or some kind of an Italian seasoning in with your butter. So we're going to brush some of this out. We only want to use about half of this before we bake. And then once it comes out of the oven, we're going to use the rest of the butter and put it on just as it comes out of the oven so that it can make it all nice and soft on the outside. And then we're going to top it with some Parmesan cheese when it's hot out of the oven so that Parmesan can melt on there. So we're just going to get this in the oven, bake it for 12 to 15 minutes. You just want them nice and golden. If you're making smaller ones, probably the 12 minutes for sure. These are the bigger ones. We might be closer to the 15. And I just put parchment paper down just because we've got this garlic melted on here. It's just going to make a bit of a mess. So we're going to get these in the oven 12 to 15 minutes at 425. All right, this is 12 minutes, not quite ready. I just want to show you, it needs to be a bit more golden. It's a bit too light. So I'm going to put this in for my full 15. All right, just out of the oven, and we're going to get the rest of this garlic butter on top right away, so that can soak on there. And get your Parmesan cheese, about 1/3 or half a cup, whatever you. I had my Parmesan cheese was a little bit bigger, so I had to grind it up. So I think I have a little bit more than half my 1/3 of a cup for there. I'm gonna get that on while it's hot so that can just melt on there. All right, so there's your garlic knots. There's your recipe. Give these ones a try. They're so light and fluffy, such a nice recipe.